Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time it is when you're watching this. My name is Gary and I'm with On the Clock Employee Time Tracking. We are a web-based, cloud-based time tracking system for employees to punch in and out or to do like time off requests and time cards for your payroll. Now, recently we were in Chicago for the Society of Human Resource Management 2024 National Conference, and it was a fantastic time. But the most common thing that we had conversations about was overtime, because we're in the habit of tracking time, so overtime is a part of a time card. So we had a lot of people asking about it, and realistically we just wanted to find what's going to be changing, why is that important to you, and what do you need to know. Keep it simple. So overtime, at its basic component, is the wage that someone is paid when they work past a threshold of hours as defined by your state or locality. Now, here in Michigan, our overtime starts at 40 hours per week, but in some states it's 8 hours per day or 12 hours per day. It depends. But the minimum is that anytime an employee passes this time limit, they must be paid 1.5 times their hourly wage. Now, that wasn't too important before, but there are some laws changing. That means even if you're not hourly, if you're salary, you can fall within this group. Now, why is this important? Most people already know that overtime exists, but why do you need to know about these changes, and why and how can this affect you? Well, overtime is an enforceable compliance, meaning if you make mistakes on paying out overtime, it'll actually cost you. On average, throughout the 50 states, overtime mistakes cost $291 per mistake. So what does that mean? Well, if you miss overtime on a Friday, for that one person, even if it was just 10 minutes, that's that 10 minutes of wages plus $291. Now, if you also mess up, because Saturday is all overtime at that point, and there's a mess up on that and it's not paid out correctly, that's an additional $291. And that stacks up. Millions of dollars are paid out each year by companies across the United States for both missed overtime and the fines associated with it. It can add up really quickly. I remember reading a report about one company that had 253 separate times when that got messed up in transit from the time card to the payroll system. Each one of those was a $290 fine. So that's going to add up. That probably ended up adding up to more than what they were paying out in missed wages. And that's not accounting for when you have to have people go in and correct those mistakes and change the time cards. Now you're adding labor into the mix. So it can actually be very costly when you have issues with overtime, which is why it's so important to make sure your overtime is tracked and that you have the accurate data to it down to the minute so that nothing gets messed up. It's one of those situations where it happens and it can be corrected, but it's better to just avoid it happening from the get-go.